How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome to another week of Headcases, and I must say today's guest is a real delight. She is the L'Oréal Global Ambassador and as well as a celebrity colorist. She is a master colorist at the Butterfly Salon in New York City. She's curated content that has trained thousands of hairdressers globally. She has presented in, now catch this, 62 different countries. She is a balayage and corrective color expert. So let's get into this week's head case, Min Kim. Well, Min, it is a pleasure to have you on Head Cases, and welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, listen, what I love about doing this program is I get to meet so many people that I haven't had the opportunity to meet before. So we're going to be soon become best friends, whether you like it or not. But I just wanted to say it is great. And I have to admit, unbeknownst to, because you work at Butterfly Salon in New York City, yeah?
Yes.
And do you know that we lived on 21st between Park and Broadway? So we were literally a block and a half from you. You're on 21st and 5th, right?
Yeah.
And I lived on on 21st between Park and Broadway.
Well, I used to live on 22nd Street between Park and Broadway.
No way.
So the salon, I lived in that apartment, I think, for about 8 years until I had my kid. And then I had a duplex, so babies and stairs don't go well together. So that's when I left my amazing apartment around the corner. Yeah. So you were around the corner too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what and I have to admit that I went on and I Googled you and I stalked you a little bit to find out this. And I just went, holy, this is amazing when I find out they're there and we're literally almost neighbors, So I just, it's a pleasure. I've told everybody on the intro how wonderful you are, but I just, what I always like to do at the very beginning, Min, is try to find out, because we're so diverse that there's always a different beginning that we have. So what pulled you into the hair industry? What made hair it for you at that time? Or was it the first thing you had to do?
I think it always called to me, but I didn't think it was something that I could do as a career. So it was just something I did on the side. Like I was always doing my friend's makeup. I was braiding the teacher's hair in school when we should have been doing our lessons. I always had like something around beauty and fashion going on, even though I was raised to be in an academic mindset. So I think that's kind of what at the end, when I finally ended up specializing in color, it really was the fusion of the creative, pretty things that I liked, and then also the scientific aspect of coloring and understanding how chemicals work.
So it was right from day one when you got out of school. Did you go right into hair?
No, I mean, I was actually a biology major at Rutgers University.
Wow.
And I figured out early on that I did not want to go to medical school like I told my parents I wanted to. And then that's kind of when I went through the program very quickly at college. I think like the first semester, everyone in the biology program loved me because I used to just show up and not really take the exams because I knew I wasn't going to follow through with the major. And then I went from the 5-year plan to I ended up finishing in 3.5 years because I knew I needed to get my degree, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do with myself. So,
yeah, wild. And, it's so interesting because in talking to so many people in our industry, there's always that the people that they knew they wanted to do it straight away. And then there was the other people that, started off with something else and veered to it, I mean, I'm not going to go into mine in too much detail because I've said it many times, but I didn't I didn't even know I wanted to be hair, except my mom was a hairdresser and I couldn't get fired. So, and, uh, and in my first 2 years, I wouldn't have hired me anyway because it was just about parting my brains out. But the reality is, I think we all have that wake up call, or we all called to something, or we found something that gave us purpose when it was there. And so when you got into it, because you are, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but like balayage expert, corrective color expert, and what was in there that gave you that purpose? I think you alluded to it before, but what was it? The science nature behind it was, because that's tough for some people.
I definitely love the science about it and how there's definitely proper steps and
Hmm.
understanding if this is what you have, then you add this, and that's the final answer. But also, I think just that aspect of transformation and having that um, intuitive type of experience with hair versus
Hmm.
some things like I felt like if I went to medical school, I was really going to have to force myself to be somewhere that I didn't want to be. Versus, I always found myself like, looking at hair, and it's true. It's like if you're if you're sitting there watching TV with someone and they work in advertising, they're looking
Yep.
at every aspect of the commercial from like the production value. Versus when I'm looking at a TV show or movies, the only thing I'm looking at really is like hair.
Right.
So that's always been like that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I did reasonably well in sciences, meaning I got a C. That was most of what my marks were not like yours. Mine were C grades most of the way through, particularly after I find out that there was these things on Earth called female. But the what I have noticed is that you can be as science minded as you want, but there's still that technical side that it has to be pulled in with, and so were you always adapt? Was that balayage drew that to you right away and that side of color? How did that lead into, what's the lead in you had?
I think the lead in also, I hate to be so like financial about it, but it was also the mathematics.
Yeah.
When I first started working in New York, I had to do the books, and I actually worked on the styling cutting side.
Yeah.
And I remembered, like, I was doing the books, and she was charging $150 for one haircut. She took 1 hour
Hmm.
to do one haircut. And I would see the color assistants running around with money falling out of their aprons. And literally, like, it was just like so much like a higher pace and more energy. And like, I just kept feeling myself being drawn into their side. So that was actually when I ended up thinking about switching to color. And then when I finally ended up moving to butterfly, that's when I made the final switch.
The jump.
Yeah.
And what was it like when transforming from, because I think right now that so many areas in the US are there, you do everything. You're a cutter, you're a colorist, you do everything, and combined, that's how you make your coin. But in New York, I mean, at least maybe it's changing a bit now, but everything was you had to be departmentalized. So you had to make your choice. Um, how was that transitioning from, was it an easy transition? Was it a hard transition that when you went from being a cutter and finisher to over to color?
For me, it was definitely more natural. It definitely is like where my heart was happy versus when I was
Mm,
on the other side, it was just like it wasn't enough. It wasn't as fast paced. Not that it's not fast paced, but I feel like I'm managing so many different things when I'm coloring hair.
yeah.
So there's always multiple processes happening, and I kind of like managing all the madness.
Wow. Yeah. See that, and I think that takes a certain kind of mindset too of being able to have four or five things going and being able to do it. And and I mean this with all due respect because they say that women do that better than men, but I always say I'm a great multitasker as long as I'm doing one thing at a time. But
Right.
when I think that you have to, as a colorist with so many people in your chair, you really have to be thinking about what am I doing on each of those heads? How is it going? what am I doing on each one of them? What's the next step? And how do you how do you work with assistants, with apprentices, or?
I do. So I definitely rely on the assistant to keep me going and keep me on track. So it's really like almost like I'm just here doing the hair.
Right.
So I need a great assistant that can help manage me and my day.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of it is it's not just learning how to do hair because there's so much information out there now. But I think what is being lost is people aren't really being taught how to deal and manage with
Yeah.
people and time.
You,
So,
you hit on a great word there. And because I think that sometimes when you hear the word apprentice or you hear the word associate or assistant, whatever, pick your word, that they think they're the order taker. And I remember being in doing a gig in Korea, and I just absolutely loved it there. And when you had somebody assisting you there, I still remember that the first time um, I asked her, I asked them just for an iron, and the way that they passed the iron to me, they passed it so it immediately went in my hand. I didn't have to do any fumbling, and they really were thinking about it every step of what did you need next, um, and I loved what you said about they become your manager. And
yeah,
so sometimes that it's the people that develop through their faster are the ones that really can help to manage you by really thinking what you're thinking. They're really thinking what you need before that you actually need it.
100%. And it's if there's something that I notice, it's always if someone is ahead. Like
Yeah.
if you're not thinking two steps ahead, then you're not really present, right?
Right.
Because if you can't anticipate my needs, then what are you paying attention to?
Yeah.
And
And why do I need you?
right, right. So, and part of the learning, yes, it's I'm here to teach you as much as I can about my experiences with color and the products. Yes, all this information's there, but what people don't really learn, and I think that's like a miss, is how to deal with people. So whether you're
Yeah.
dealing with big companies and brands, or you're
Hmm.
dealing with um, working in a suite and having other suite owners, but like you're always going to have to learn how to manage people. And that's
Right.
not something that's necessarily taught at all. If you think about most apprentice programs or even in beauty school.
Yeah, it's true. I think that I've often heard about people the way you talk to one another, and that word manage comes up, but it really is about a connection that you make. And if you can make that connection, whether it's, and I always believe that things should be not hierarchical, moving up and down, but they should be lateral. Like when you treat your whoever you're working with, whether it's your boss, if you're an employee, or whether you're an associate, or pick the title, is you've got to work, horizontally, meaning that you do what you do really well. I do what I do really well, but I have to make sure that everybody has that same respect for one another so that you can truly make a connection and have a relationship with everybody. So I think that's amazing. I want to just jump back for a bit here because I want to go back to what was it like for you at the very beginning when you say you just got out of school, and what was the transition like from going from the school and getting into a salon the first time? Because so many of our listeners and watchers out and people watching right now they're in that area where they just got out of school. But what was it like for you? And what advice would you give to people when you're just joining in at a salon?
I mean, I think you have to find the right environment that fits.
Yeah.
Number one. So when I first started in New York, I think, I was at two other salons, two other large, well known salons
Hmm.
before I ended up at Butterfly. And this May is actually going to be my 20th year there, which is
Wow.
crazy because I can't believe I can say that I've been somewhere for 20 years. But I found my home and my people, like my clients, my coworkers, like everyone there. It's grown tremendously from when I
Hmm.
first started. And it's insane now because it's like, whether you're someone that's in the early 20s that doesn't have family, or you're a single working mom or you have kids. Like there's really been this kind of fluid movement in how we're working.
Yeah.
So it's been able to work for me where, I still work with L'Oréal Professionnel in the US and
Hmm.
internationally, and then I'm still able to go there and take clients. And everyone
Yeah.
kind of knows what I'm doing. So everyone loves it, respects it, but I also respect my clients and their time and also the salon.
Right. And how did that grow into that? Like, what was that? Was there something that you got along the way that you learned along the way that from the time that you got out of school, jumped into this salon and you went, oh my God, I'm at a different arena? Or did you not have that? And then what was the build up things that, whether it was that 2, 3 years, 10 years, whatever, what were the things that you learned along the way from when you just got in the salon that really helped you right now?
I think again, going back to what we are talking about, just like anticipating things and seeing things
Hmm.
before they needed to happen. So I think that's something where it really makes you stand out. And then from early on in my career, I would say that I just did everything possible. So whether it was doing a million models or 500 dolly heads or making mistakes, but instead of beating myself up, trying to figure out why that happened and how to get out of
Mm,
it. And I think really starting to, in my 20s, I would say I was really hard on myself. I made a lot of mistakes like we all do. But once I started developing and maturing in my 30s, and it was really about like, how do you take these mistakes and turn them into lessons and what can you learn
right.
from them? And it's when you're in the poop, you just keep walking. Like you don't just stay stuck in it, you just have to keep moving. So it's always be forward thinking, keep saying yes, do
Yeah.
things even when you don't want to, because sometimes when you do those things, that's when people remember the way you showed
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah.
always show up.
Yeah. Wouldn't you agree that, I mean, sometimes, like you said something that I really liked in there, which was that the mistakes are what lead to the lessons. And the reality is, none of us know how to do anything the first time. I mean, we might intuitively know, or we might think we know, but that's right. I mean, and I've said this 100 times, but what I think is so messed up about our society is that everything's got to be what we call this definition of perfect, meaning it's got to be done right. And we never give anybody a chance to just learn. And we know that we learn by making mistakes. And and mistakes isn't like we jumped off a bridge and died. It's just something that happened that we need to happen, and we learn from it and we can move on and we get better each time.
Right.
And I think that's what I love that you said in there is that, if you're going to make a mistake, just understand that there is a lesson in there, and you're going to get better for it. And if you don't, you're just going to get stuck.
Right. It's like the glass half full or half empty mindset. It's the way you
Yeah.
look at it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone has things happening, good and bad, but it's just how we deal with it and what you take from it.
Yeah.
So,
I've always said if the glass is half full or half empty, there's always more room for scotch. So the the now tell me that being a balayage expert, this is now. Did you have? Were you good at it all along? Was there something that happened that all of a sudden you here's the switch? Here's the thing that I learned to do differently that now I love it, and where I didn't. Did you like it all the time? Did you ever make a mistake in a balayage or?
oh my God, my balayage was horrible. Like,
Yeah.
I literally started doing balayage from the academy with L'Oreal
Yeah.
because my balayage was so horrible that the owner of the salon sent me in and was like, "Hey, Nancy Ron, I've got
Oh
this
yeah.
kid who's got some promise, but she needs some balayage help." And that's kind of how my journey started. And I discovered that it wasn't balayage that was terrible, it was just my application that sucked.
Got it. I love it. I love it. And sometimes that's all we need, a little outside help, right?
Yeah.
And have you always, like, are you the one that always goes, okay, here's education, I'm going to see it, I'm doing it right away, I don't care who it is? Were you ever did you ever hold back from any education, or was it always you've been an education junkie?
I'm always for learning as many different perspectives as possible. So I love to watch all the things. Like, I
Good.
might not do haircuts, but I like understanding how things happen. And I think that really helps to make you become a better colorist if you have a full understanding, especially because in major cities we are departmentalized.
Yeah.
So it's different than when you're doing everything and you get to create the full look.
Yeah. And and I'm not sure if what I saw was when you were talking about balayage, but I saw an Instagram uh, hit that you did. I know so little about it. You can tell that I don't even know what the hell they're called. But I saw the video that you did, and I remember you had this girl sitting in your chair, and you had people watching all the way around, and you had put, I believe it was two ponytails or two clips on the side, and you had the back hair separated,
Mm,
and you had the top areas that were going to rest on top of it out of the way. And then you talked about in your consultation how you determine whether you're going to be coloring one or the other or both. Do you remember that one?
yes, yes,
Because I
yes.
thought it was so profound. Could you give us just give us the highlight? And I saw it and I thought it was brilliant. And could you just walk us through it?
So I think people, clients tell us, the professionals, what to do too often. But a lot of
Mm,
times I look at them and I say, I show them what needs to be done. So if they have long hair, I flick the back to the front and I ask
uh-huh.
them, how does this look? Do you want this to be lighter or brighter? Do you want more? Because if they want this to be addressed, then that's a
Yeah.
full head.
Right.
So it's not even I just take the canvas and use that and make that a conversation starter. And it's little things like a lot of times what I do before videos, I show my clients the back of their head because they don't look at the back of their head. So they have
Right.
no idea. So if you're not turning them around and showing them these things and explaining to them when you have a layered shattered cut, you can't just do a half a head
Right.
because you're not painting the whole haircut.
Yeah. 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 And it's also, there's another one that comes up is if you don't relate that to somebody if that's going to cut her hair, if you're not cutting it, that's where that stigma comes in, is that if you color it first, then the cutter, and you, let's say you don't have the underneath colored, but you do have the top colored, and then the cutter goes in and layers the whole thing,
Right,
then your the whole color technique is wrecked.
right.
Yeah, so I think that's and I love that, and I also love that you said I don't always. How did you? I can't remember exactly what you said, but I loved it. You said I don't always do what they want. I'm paraphrasing, but tell us a little bit more about that.
So I think social media is wonderful because it's really made our clients more educated,
Hmm.
but it's also made it a little bit of a nightmare because they come in telling you they want balayage when it's a bleach out, but they're
Right.
calling it a balayage because they created a gradient look with the root melt and colors.
Yeah.
So it's the terminology is being thrown around, but it's like, okay, that's not actually what that is. It might be a color transformation, which the way
Yeah.
I book a transformation is I charge by the hour because that is intense work. So a lot of these colors that they see, are hours and hours of work, but they're just seeing the quick final result with the beginning. And they don't get that everything that happens in the middle is
Right.
quite labor intensive, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that having the education is wonderful, but it's also making it unrealistic when they think they know more than us, the
Yeah.
professional.
So what do you do when they come in? Like they've booked out for a certain thing, and then they come in and want something totally different. What do you do? What do you do in that range? I mean, everybody has their opinion of what they do, but what does Min do?
Well, what Min does is Min doesn't allow new clients in her chair without a consultation.
Oh,
So I do either a virtual or in person, and
yeah.
depending on what they want. And I literally had a girl who I had a consultation with her, lovely girl. She told me that she had box dyed her hair blue. It had
Ooh,
been 6 months, and she showed me a photo, and it was basically like a level 6 neutral. with like, level 9 sandy highlights on the ends. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
you know
Half an hour.
there's a
Half an hour.
lot of color history, but this is someone that would have just booked in for,
Yeah.
half a head. But I told her, like, you need to come in. I want to do a strand test to see what the color history is. And then once we go from here, I can give her some options about if you want to do a full transformation, which case she's going to have to find a day where I'm available at least 3 hours in a row, or
Hmm.
it's a journey. And that's something where we're going to do it in steps. It's
Yeah.
also more budget friendly. So I give
Yeah.
them the options. And it's like, a lot of times, like, they want to go from 0 to 20 in one visit, but their hair
Yep.
can't handle it, right? If they're doing thermal styling every day with it at the highest setting and they're not protecting their hair,
Right.
like, all these things factor into chemical risk, which I just want to make sure that I'm setting myself up properly. So when they come in, they know what to expect financially. And also for me, I need them to commit to a certain regimen, right? If they're going to
Yep.
do major color.
I love it. I'm trying to remember the person who said this, and I, rather than giving improper credit, but I remember somebody saying that your hair, this is going to sound like a weird metaphor, but they said your hair is like a steak. And I apologize to anybody out there who's vegan and etc. But he said, if you want a medium rare steak and you've got it well done, I can't take it back to medium rare. You've got to give me time to help to regrow, replace, recondition your hair to get it back to where we actually can do these in steps. So
Yeah.
I love what you said about that. Do you ever turn a client away
Oh,
when,
yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
Well, and how do you and tell us, like, what's the circumstance, but then also how do you do it? So do you do it so that just get lost, or do you do it uh, so they can come back? But what are the different circumstances?
I mean, if I have someone where their hair is damaged and I won't
Yeah,
take them immediately, I tell them that, I might want them to come in and start doing a treatment series. And
yeah,
honestly, the first thing I do is I take a piece of their hair and I do a strand test. If the hair
yeah,
snaps, if they see that,
yeah,
it's like you got to work with me, like, help me help you.
yeah,
And if
yeah,
you're not doing the things you need to properly make sure that we're starting with a good foundation, because even if I do fantastic color, if the hair isn't being taken care of, it's not going to look
yeah,
good and it's not going to last.
yeah. And they're going to blame us, right?
Right. And
Yeah, it's not.
it's help me help you. Like,
Yeah,
doesn't matter how great I am, if you're not doing the treatments, if you're not doing the shampoos, conditioners, if you're not following our regimen, our recommendations, coming in for glossing, trims,
yeah,
all these things, you can't come in once and then expect it to look great for 2 years.
yes, yeah. And uh, do you that so that sounds to me, I mean, you still got that client, you're giving them the right recommendations just like your doctor would do, and then they come back when they're ready, and you bring it, you do the services when you can do them. What do you do? Do you have clients that come in that, I'm not sure how to say it. Either we either get along with somebody and have a great relationship with them, or don't. And I remember, I'm not behind the chair all the time anymore, but I remember when I had people that would come in, and I was ecstatic when I saw their name on the book. But I also saw people that would come in and I would go, oh my God. And it would kind of ruin my day when I saw they're in, and it was actually affected all the other people around them. So I knew how I handled those. How do you handle those?
I am lucky enough at this point in my career where they have pretty much weeded themselves out.
Mm,
A lot of it is that, my prices are at a point where the clients that come to see me really want to see me. And a lot of them are people that have moved out of state and they're coming in and scheduling their business trips around when their hair needs to be redone. But I
hmm.
also have a lot of these clients where I'm not in the salon consistently anymore as well.
Right.
So I always tell them, if you can't get in, just send me a message and I'll see how I can work you in. So even if it
Yeah.
means I go in earlier or I stay later, but I mean, I really want to do that for my clients. But at this point, even the new ones, because of social media, they've researched me so well. So
Yeah.
they have an idea of what their experience in the chair is going to be like. They have an idea of who I am as a person. So they know coming very well versed in saying what it is that they want. And also, like, they have an expectation of what their experience is going to be.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. Yeah, and I think the person I'm thinking about right now, because I mean, you and I have traveled kind of this apex where we are right now, but I always keep thinking about. I remember when I first started, and I'm sure there's kids out there that are listening, watching right now that are saying they've got that yeah but theory. Yeah, but I'm just starting off. I don't have I haven't got a full book yet. I have to be careful. I can't just go indiscriminately firing people or making them not available. What is there anything? Do you have client that you might have wanted to one time get rid of, but yet now they're a good client with you and trust you more? How would you advise that young kid starting off that their boss is going, got to be booked, got to be booked, got to be booked, and that they have somebody that they don't want to do or they don't like doing? What were things that you would tell that person?
Sometimes it's just about saying that I don't think we're the right fit. And I think that you're going to be much happier having your hair done with someone else. They're going to
Yeah.
be a better fit for you. So, a lot of times, too, even when I'm recommending someone to get a haircut, I ask them what kind of experience they want, right?
Yeah.
So if they want someone that's quiet and doesn't talk too much, then I know it's this person. If they want someone that's
Yeah.
super quick, I know it's this person.
Yeah.
So I think it's that kind of thing too, where it's like, I might not be your cup of tea, because a lot of times I tell people, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me a question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There
A
you
lot of
go.
times people come in, they just want you to blow fairy dust up their butt. And I'm like, but this isn't realistic, right? So I'm great at what I do, but this isn't,
Yeah.
you have 5 hairs on your head and you're showing me an Asian woman with more hair than mine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times it's like, if you can see that your visions are not aligned, it's never going to work.
You're
And
right.
once you
Yeah.
recognize that, it's okay just to acknowledge that and say, this isn't the right relationship for either of us, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to recommend someone else.
Yeah.
Or, if there's another type of experience you're looking for, we can find that for you.
Yeah, I love that you use the experience you're looking for, because you're not necessarily saying experience of 2 years versus 20 years in the business. You're saying what's the kind of person that you want to deal with. So, and that person that it could be even somebody else in the salon who has a different taste, a different style than yours,
Right.
and it still can be within the salon. But I love what you said there, because I think that what you permit, you promote. And I think if you let all those people come in and you're doing that kind of hair, then that's the people you're going to draw.
Yeah.
Because they're going to hang around with people like them, and you're just building your clientele. How do you want to build your clientele?
Right.
I remember when I first, you would have hopefully never knew me when I was like this, but I had hair down partway to my waist, layered, and it has a natural wave in it. So I always looked more like the Cowardly Lion than anything. But I had this full head of reddish blonde hair, and you can tell from the color right now. But that was the hair. Everybody looked at my hair and they came to me because that's the hair I wore. So that's what I attracted. And finally, I just cut all my hair off just so that I didn't attract those kind of people anymore. So I know you're probably looking at me going, Cowardly Lion, huh? I'll put them up. Okay, I want to kind of shift here from a second, because you kind of went that that route where uh, busy in the salon, you're packed all the time now, but then there's that shift that happens with hairdressers where they can get lured into want whatever and want to get onto the educational side. How did that happen for you? Well, like how did all of a sudden I'm in the hairdresser, I'm packed with clients, and next day I'm on stage? How did that happen for you?
It kind of happened accidentally. I want to say that I remember I just had to look up my start year. So I believe May of 2004. No, 2000. Oh crap. I forget it. Anyway, my start
Yeah.
year. Um,
And this was in education,
in
yeah?
education, I
Yeah.
got started because the brand needed someone to teach a class. And the salon owner knew that I was like using it in all the ways you were supposed to and not supposed to. So she recommended me, and it got me put in front of the VP of education at the time.
Oh,
And I did 2 classes out in California, and it was right around when the balayage team was being formed. And Nancy knew my work, and Kato Shell, who was there at the time,
yep,
like,
yep,
so it just
yeah,
kind of all came together where I was saying yes to things where I didn't know what I was walking into. I was going into environments, teaching classes in salons where I didn't know what I was doing. But I did it, and I was just sharing what I knew.
yeah,
And I think it's really like the way you connect with people. And then if you're also able to exchange and share information, then that's
yeah,
really when education is something that comes naturally.
yeah,
So it just started from there.
yeah. Because it's interesting, isn't it? How because you see so many. I mean, you can tell that you have this affinity to connect with people, and I think that just creates a great relationship with everybody. And I think that's the hardest part for most people when they transfer from doing hair at the chair to trying to teach, where they're actually building a relationship with people. Because there's that saying that we have people people buy you, and then that'll pay for a stage for you to stand on. But if they don't, if you don't come across as somebody that they can relate to, then doesn't matter how good you are,
Right.
they don't buy into you, and then consequently they don't buy into what you're selling, which is you and the product and everything else. Um, how was that? How was that at first? Did you when you were doing the education? Was there ever any? Is there any screw ups that happened, or things when you did the first times? I'll put notes that you did to yourself, and you said, "Well, I will never do that on. I won't try that one again," or I'm going to shift that when you were doing your education. What was that like?
I think when I was trying to be the educator, quote unquote,
Oh,
be the
yeah,
educator, I stressed myself out, and
yeah,
it made me forget the things that I knew versus me just being me. And I think this is what's interesting is like, education has really blown up, I think, in so many different ways in the last few years because of what the world's going through.
yep,
Um, but education is also like, not everyone is the same. So I think what people have to really think about is, what is it about you that makes you you, and share that instead of you trying to be like Chris or you
right,
trying to be like Min. Like when you try to be a
yep,
mini me of someone else, it comes across as completely unauthentic. But
yeah,
when you're able to tap into what it is that makes your heart sing, or what part of your past or your learning experience or journey that you can share, that's when these connections are really, really formed. So I think it's just like, anyone that wants to be in education, or even when you're like starting on the floor, how to connect with the people. Once you
right,
figure out how to connect with the individual and or the audience, that's when things really change.
yeah, and that's profound. And you said something that has made me think of this. Never come into my head before, but I think when you think about, if you take a look at a production video where it's produced, everything's right on it, people always go, well, I could never live up to that. But when you look at Instagram and they see somebody make a mistake, or they talk about the mistakes that happen, or they're just themselves and they're just being their true authentic self, then they immediately go, okay, good, I'll forgive you of any little foible that you might even have. But and there's this in education, we always call it, when you get stuck in your head, and that's when your authenticity goes, you're trying to climb out of a hole that you dug yourself into. And that's the hardest thing for people to do, because then they get in their head, they can't recall the message they're trying to deliver. Whereas, what I found is, if you're doing that and you just say to the people, look, I don't know what happened there. I'm just, I don't even know how I kind of messed that up. Let me start over on that. And it kind of gives yourself that permission, that so when you do something wrong, that just to say, look, I kind of screwed that up, didn't I? Here, let me start over. And I think that it brings your rate back to where they trust you again, because they see you as a human being.
Yeah, 100%.
So the along the way, was there mentors that you had, things that helped you along? If you had to, are you more, I'm self-sufficient, I didn't need all the people, don't need other people to help me along, or is there people that really guided you?
I want to say, I mean, my education career has been with L'Oréal Professionnel.
Yeah.
And I think along the way, we've had many great leaders and people that were able to provide us with so many different types of trainings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, whether it was personal or professional development, just any work on development has really helped to have an impact on both aspects of life. So even if it was just a workshop, that
Yeah.
there was some application where in my life I was like, oh, well, this kind of crosses over. And if I do that, oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, look, I'm having results there too.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
just having like this full 360 experience and just being more present and aware has been very helpful.
Yeah, you're making me think here, because I'm in that same thing. I'm obviously have been involved with manufacturers for years, and I always love when I see that name on the top left hand corner of the check when it comes to me. Um, but I wonder, like, if I wouldn't have got involved with them, would I have all the training, personal development, professional development? Would have I gotten that? Would have I got it in the same way? Would I have put myself out there for it? Or, like, because I remember even starting off, that if they said that there was when I first got into the industry, and I'm not proud of who I was at that time, because I was a guy collecting a paycheck. But when they came around to say there was an educational event on the weekend, I went, it's going to cut into my party time on the weekend, and I just would never go. Whereas once you're ingrained in it, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? It makes a big difference on how you see your growth based on what you get from other people.
Yeah. And I think like at this point, it's like I'm learning every day from everyone. So
Yeah.
even my 8-year-old who I'm battling because I'm discovering he's a lazy, smart student.
Oh.
Sounds familiar. So I'm like,
Uh huh.
I know all your tricks.
Yes.
But, even taking everything I've learned and now I'm applying it with an 8-year-old is flexing
Right.
my brain in a different way than I've been. So
Yeah.
it's constant.
Yeah, no, I think especially with growing up and partners, etc. I've learned with my wife, never. She knows my tricks, so she treats it the other way around. She said, "Don't you bloody well debrief me," So if the if you wanted to have somebody that wanted to be successful at, you probably have 3 traits that you have within you that make you great at being at the chair, but also being a good communicator with your clients and with people that you go to teach. If you could, what would traits that you would say that you have that other people that if they were just starting off in it, something that they should hone more? What would traits that they should really think about?
Listening.
Mm,
I think also being present and paying attention, especially like to the energy of what's happening.
hmm
Otherwise you're going to be completely off and miss the
Yeah.
target in so many ways. Like maybe the hair won't turn out right, or you're not going to connect with the person because you're just not paying attention.
hmm
And also to be persistent.
Oh, in what way? Also,
You can't be afraid of failure. If someone doesn't like something, don't let that ruin you. Just try to figure
mm,
out how to make it better. And I think the solution oriented mindset is something where
yeah,
instead of being a victim, when you see something happen, think of the ways to make it right.
right.
So, and I think if people were more solution oriented, then it would eliminate a lot of complaining. Because
Yeah,
when someone's complaining, they're just talking, right?
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not offering answers. So
yeah,
it's a little different than just listening to the noise.
yeah. The I love what you said, especially about the listening. And I remember in a book that I read is that listening is different than waiting for your turn to talk.
Yes.
And what I heard from you is true listening will often inside there give you the solution that you're looking for if you talk and question deep enough and so on. So I think that's
100%.
it's brilliant.
I mean, there's
Um,
a proper consultation, right?
yeah, and you know what? It's funny, isn't it? That I mean, I'm stating something that we've all said before. I think it came from a study that L'Oreal did that 97% of hairdressers said that they provide a consultation, but only 7% of the stylists said that they actually got one beyond like, what do you want? So there is a huge misconception of what an act true consultation really, really is.
Right.
Is there? And I'm hoping I'm not asking you to give away any trade secrets here, but what are like? Is there a step approach or a 5-step approach that you do? Like things, what do you ask or how do you employ in your consultation?
I mean, it's always open ended questions, right? I
Yeah,
think that's a basic rule.
yeah,
And it's really just to extract. I look at the consultation as my opportunity to extract as much information as possible. So
right,
it's not just about their hair, it's about their lifestyle, it's about their budget, it's about do they have special things coming up. So it's really trying to understand who this person is and then figuring out a look that's going to work for them. And if they want something and it's not realistic, I'm going to tell them, I don't want you walking around for 6 months with your hair looking crazy. Like, if you
right.
can't commit to this type of schedule, then this is what I could offer you instead.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is what to expect. And this will be the iteration and the variation of color. So, if it gets to this point, then come in for a gloss. And then we'll see if we can do more. But I feel like that way it becomes a much more collaborative experience as well. And that's
yeah,
when I think you really get that client. So instead of, there's some people that like being told what to do. But I think because there's so much information out there now, people really want to be part of the experience, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
at least when you have this type of exchange, then you're going to be more confident that you're delivering what they want. And they're also going to be more clear on telling you and showing you what it is that they want.
yeah. And I love there's a word that you used in there that I've heard a lot of people talk about consultation before, but very few. And I know I'm going to get letters on this one because people will be saying I do. And if you're doing it, awesome. But you said budget.
Mm,
And I think that's the hardest part for most hairdressers. I mean, if you're watching or listening out there, and you came from my background where money wasn't easy to come by, and you felt that you were always, it sounded like a sale or you're digging into their pocketbook or whatever when you're talking about how much it's going to cost them. I think a lot of people are afraid to just talk money to
yeah.
people. And so can you give us a little more, like if when you talk budget to people, what do you do with that? How do you get across this? Well, first of all, in your mindset, was there a trigger that you had to go through? Well, listen, how did you get your mindset for it right first? And then what are the words you use?
I think that really it's about managing expectations.
Uh-huh.
So that's when I ask them, like, what can you commit to? Can you
Got
come
it.
back? Like if we're doing someone, so like for example, I have a ton of clients that I do balayage highlights and lowlights. And
Yep.
it's not perfect for white coverage, but it's white blending. So
Yeah.
I call it a search and destroy mission. I make it like a
Ooh.
game, right?
Yep. Yep.
But once they start coming in, and if I see that they're coming in, they went from every 3 months to now I'm seeing them every 8 weeks. And the first
Yep.
thing they talk about is their white hair,
Yep.
then I know it's time to have a different conversation. And literally, I'll
Right.
be like, listen, you're coming in every 8 weeks, you're spending $610 to do this highlight low light combination. Versus if you come every 6 to 8 weeks and it's $260 and we're getting perfect white coverage, you're getting better results of what's bothering you. And it's basically costing the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, can you commit to the time? And I
Yes.
plan it out for them that way because they might think that it's a lot, but if you think about what they're spending in that interim, and then the benefit of how much happier they're going to be, not stressing that their white hair is showing,
Yep.
then this is something. But again, this is all part of that conversation that we have to have. But if someone isn't able to maintain something, they might not start off with permanent color. Maybe there'll be a demi-permanent for gray coverage. Maybe there'll be a highlight low light combination. So it just depends, and that's when that dialogue happens. I tell
Yeah.
them, how often do you want to be here?
Yeah, because if they're not in the exact vicinity of where you are, because I know of you, and I know that you have people that are traveling from all over the world just to come and sit in your chair. So if that's not set up in advance, then you're really setting yourself up and them for failure if they don't either know what's going to happen the next time or you can't do anything. You just can't do it, even though I flew in from whatever city.
Right. I mean, ideally, they're making their next appointment while they're in the chair, and we're looking at my schedule. And then I also
Yeah.
and they give me a ton of grace because you know how it is. Things come up
Yeah.
last minute, so they'll work with me. But that's why I also work with them. So if it
Yeah.
means I stay a little later or come in a little earlier, then I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, but I read in one article that I think you talked about is that you were talking about balance.
Mm,
And I think that's a word that's coming up a lot lately. But I'm hearing from people is that because you're a mom, uh, it's your boy, right? You have a
yeah.
son at home, and you have to have some balance in there too. If you're like, as you did 60 plus in your career, 60 countries or whatever that you've been in, that's a lot of travel. So you've got to have some balance in there too, so that you actually know what your son looks like when you get home.
Yeah, so so now I have experiences with him. And,
Ah,
back in the day, I used to work like crazy and then go to Tulum every 3 months or whatever. But now that's too blown. It's
yeah,
too busy. It's too crazy. But now Jake and we started surfing together.
awesome.
So every 6 months, we go to Costa Rica. We have a coach that we work with
Love Costa
challenges
Rica.
us, but like, yeah, and it's like the shared experience where, one day when he's a young man, I'm going to be able to tell him your old mom is the one that took you on a surfboard for the first time.
I love it. Where do you go when you go to Costa Rica? Where do you go?
Tamarindo.
Tamarindo. Now, is that West Coast, East Coast?
It's on the west, kind of in the middle. So you fly
Gotcha.
into Liberia,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah, but it's like,
interesting. Yeah. I've been there a number of times, and I just love the beach. I love the weather. The weather is just phenomenal there, as long as you're not in the monsoons. But
yeah.
I do. That's one of my favorite places. If I was, I was actually going to buy a home. I could have bought a home on the beach there, beach frontage, and I think I can't remember what it was. It was like I can't can't remember, 300,000 for this, and I would have had to put in another 100 to make it. But I'm kicking myself that I never bought it now, because the
Yeah.
rates now, it's just through the roof. No, but so congrats. I love that you get that in there with Jake. That's awesome. What is it that pushes you? What pushes Min to keep you growing, etc.? What is it? What is that thing?
Well, I get bored easily.
Oh,
So I need constant challenges and change of scenery. So, like, I think if I did one thing only, I would be incredibly bored and unhappy. But that's why, as hard as it is to manage the travel and being in 100 different places and wearing, so many different hats, it really is what keeps me going.
yeah,
And I think, like, I have a high functioning brain in the sense that there's a ton of stuff happening all the time. And if there was less happening, I think that's when my
yeah,
soul would slowly, like, when
yeah.
we couldn't travel and like see people, that was like horrible.
It was hell for you.
Yeah, it was
So do you?
horrible.
So do you have people that? I mean, let's face it. You got a family. You're traveling. You're in the salon. When it comes to arrangements like booking flights and all, do you have to do all that? Do you have somebody that helps you with it?
Actually, I have a management team, and they
Oh,
are
good.
called Social Art House.
Yeah,
And they do help me with everything happening here in the US. And then I also have people that I work with in Paris. So
yeah.
they help with all the international stuff. So I get a lot
That's
of help
awesome.
from all over the world. So I have a lot of
Yeah.
amazing people that support me.
Yeah, yeah, and it just I think that there's so many people that when they start in this, they want to do it all themselves, but the little stuff is what'll kill you.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do, and then I always say just hire people or have other people if they're on your team do that work for you, even if it doesn't work out every time. But that to me is really really important. Um, in your evolution of where Min got to and where it is now, and this is going to be kind of a two-parter. I'm going to ask you one part now and one part later. But in that evolutionary process of where you got to where you are now, is there something that you wish you wouldn't have done?
Hair related or
Well, anything in your evolutionary process, something that you went, damn it, if I would have done that, I could have got there quicker, faster, whatever. What was there something that you wish that you wouldn't have done in that climb?
it's yes and no. I almost wonder. I think there were so many benefits to me going to cosmetology school after university, after
Yeah,
having had a little work experience. But part of me wonders, like, if I had gone to trade school right after
yeah,
and I had a 10-year start, like, what more could I have been doing? But then I feel like
yeah,
I'm just being greedy because I've been blessed.
yeah,
I've had so many amazing things come my way and I've worked very hard for it. So then I'm
yeah.
like, really, man?
Yeah, but I agree with you. But I also the things that I've learned along the way as well when it comes to that is abundance is okay.
Hmm.
It's okay if whether you want more of something that's financial, spiritual, energy wise, just the way that things happen. It's okay and I had to learn it from a coach of mine who just said, look, if you don't have abundance as a part of the values that you have, you can't really expect yourself to go that extra mile because it is something that you can have. Our world is built on that you can have what you really want. And to me, that's always stuck with me. And I thank you for, I mean, it was a great answer.
I was going to say
Um,
thank you for that.
I'll- but listen, it was, I just, we come to that part where just there's kind of this rapid fire stuff that we go through right now. So I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, just, one, two, quick sentence, whatever comes to your brain.
Okay.
What turns you on in the creative process?
Freedom.
Mm. And what stifles it?
Hmm. Boundaries.
Mm. Yeah, because we
For
want you to do this,
rules.
but you can't stay within rules. Love it. An event or a show that you've done in the past that just you loved. I know there's many, but first one that comes to your mind, that a show that you did that was you just went, oh, MG, this was amazing.
Well, I just did an event in Paris,
Yeah.
and we hosted over 700 Chinese clients.
Wow.
And yeah, so I got to kind of work as the liaison between the corporate world and the artists.
Yeah.
So to be able to function in that manner, I was very, very proud of. So I got to work with my friends and to also like just participate on a stage where, they use social platforms that we don't have.
Right.
So it was all like very interesting learning
Right.
experiences. So I love that I'm constantly getting to do new things.
That's awesome. This is not written down here and everything, but it just kind of sparked to me when you said about doing it for 600 to 700 Chinese customers. Do you speak another language?
No.
That's amazing, because that's first thing I thought. Well, what are you translating? What were you doing there?
I,
So
I was hosting the events.
ah
But I want to say I understand a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of
yeah,
Hebrew, a little bit of French, but not enough to let me survive in any way.
yeah, gotcha. I'm pretty much the same way with English. Um, a thing in life that you dislike the most.
Thing in life that I dislike the most,
Yeah.
I guess conflict.
Yeah. And a thing in life that you love the most.
Discovery and love.
Ah. Most difficult time in your life.
Um, Probably my divorce.
Oh. A thing that you dislike about our industry.
A thing that I dislike about our industry. I think that we get a really bad reputation. And I think that part of what we're doing is to help dispel that false narrative that we're not
Yeah.
smart and successful and, business
Yeah.
minded.
I think that you just answered it, but I put the next one was what thing that you like the most about our industry. So I think that I'm not sure if that was because I think it came out there at the same time. Proudest moment of your life.
Proudest moment of my life. Um, it's actually funny, but I was at my kid's report card meeting,
Oh,
and his teacher was telling me that during their group, I guess they were looking up uh, parents, but Jake was like, "Oh, my mom. You can look her up online." So this is my kid like sharing me with
oh,
his class. So I thought that was
proud
pretty
of
cool.
mom. That's
Yeah,
brilliant, brilliant.
yeah.
A person that you wish you could meet, living or dead.
Person I wish I could meet, living or dead. Probably my grandfather, my mom's father. It's like a mystery.
Interesting. Ask them some questions, right?
Yes.
A month off. Where would you go? What would you do?
A month off, I would either go to Hawaii or Costa Rica and surf.
Nice. Greatest fear.
Greatest fear? Hmm. Failing.
Favorite curse word.
Fuck.
Favorite comfort food.
Korean.
Oh, because see, next time I'm in New York, I want to find out. I want to because I love Korean food, especially the Korean barbecue. So,
I've got lists.
oh, I want them. I want them because I absolutely love it, and I love kimchi.
Kimchi, the best.
Uh-huh. And let's see. So, if you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I work on this every day, and it's to be more patient.
Your most treasured possession.
My child.
Of course. Something in the industry you haven't done but want to.
Something, I'm going to put it out there, teach a haircutting class.
There you go, girl.
Ah,
Okay, one do-over in your life. If you had something you could do over, what would it be?
if I could do something over, I would probably listen to my parents more instead of doing the exact opposite.
Opposite. Yeah, there you go. Okay, tomorrow you couldn't do hair. You couldn't do anything hair related. What would you do?
If I couldn't do hair or do anything hair related, do I have someone to financially support me, or do I have to be
We'll
like,
make that happen.
okay, I would go back to school.
Oh, very good. Okay, last one. If you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
I would that we all have reasonable health insurance and childcare
Oh,
access.
yeah, yeah. There you go. Listen, before we kind of sign this off here, but I want to know if people want to get a hold of you, where do they go? What do they do?
Hit me up on Instagram at Minkim Colorist,
Yeah,
and look forward to connecting with everyone soon.
beautiful. Yeah. So definitely, everybody, you want to go on there and say it again. It's Min Hair Colorist,
Min Kim Colorist.
Min Kim Colorist,
Yes.
and that's on Insta, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah, all of that.
Thread, all the things.
Man, I've got a new friend on here. It's funny how just having some conversation about this really helps you to know people. So I just want to thank you for giving up your time and being here for our audience and saying thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure. So nice to connect with you, and let me know when you're in town for that Korean barbecue.
We're going to do that. That's a date. I love it. So in the
Sure.
meantime, bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you. You've been an inspiration for many, many people, me included. And I just want to say thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it.